Hello, James back with another video, and this time it is the top 10 spy films part 2. And I had been going back over the lists and just wondering which ones could I do a sort of sequel to that it's been the longest since, like some of my earlier lists. And this was one of them, the spy film, which did well. Top 10 Spy Films Part 1 did well, that it had been a while since I had revisited it. So, without further ado, number 10. Number 10, we have a film from 1983 called The Osterman Weekend. And this is one that, based on a novel by Robert Ludlum, and was directed by Sam Peckinpah. I don't know that it was his last film. I think it was one of his last films. Anyway, it stars John Hurt, Craig T. Nelson from Coach, Rutger Hauer, Helen Shaver, Meg Foster, Dennis Hopper, Chris Sarandon, a bunch of people in the film. And essentially it's the CIA is trying to track down and nab these KGB agents. And so they decide to use this television journalist as their instrument, and it's played by Rutger Hauer, who has been friends with these three people who have been suspected of being KGB agents. He's been friends with them since college, and so they're trying to orchestrate that. He invites them to the weekend that they have every year, an annual weekend they call the Osterman Weekend, because it's at his place, and his last name is Osterman. And he will sort of get them to confess all this info while the CIA is listening in, and they commit a nap. So not everything goes to plan as expected. That's basically the plot in a nutshell. The Osterman Weekend. Number 9, we have a film from 2010. It's directed by John Madden, and it's a film called The Dead. And apparently it's a remake of a 2007 Israeli thriller film, Ha-Hov, but I did not know that. And this one stars, you've got Helen Mirren, Sam Worthington, Jessica Chastain, Sharon Hines, Tom Wilkinson, Martin Sokas, and Jesper Christensen. But you've got Jessica Chastain, Sam Worthington, and I believe Martin Sokas played the younger versions of Helen Mirren, Sharon Hines, and Tom Wilkinson. So it takes place in two different time periods. Some work they did years ago that's now coming back to haunt them, and they have to essentially clean up their mess. And I think both time periods are portrayed equally well with the acting and the storylines. So I would recommend this one as an acting piece. I think all the actors, they got a star-studded cast in this one. The Dead. Number 8, we have a film from 2007 called Breach. And this was directed by Billy Ray, written and directed by Billy Ray. And it was based on a true story of Robert Hansen, who was an FBI agent convicted of spying for the Soviet Union. So he was a double agent. And you've got, they did another one starring William Hurt, and I think it was a TV movie. I never saw that one, but I saw this one. And this one starred Chris Cooper as Robert Hansen, and Ryan Phillippe as the young FBI employee who works for Robert Hansen, who ends up being involved in his exposure. So it's a good based on a true story spy film. Not the most action packed, but it's sort of like more of the stuff that happens behind the scenes, all the like espionage, but just not the Mission Impossible kind of stuff. That's Breach. 7, film from 1986, called Jumpin' Jack Flash. This one stars Whoopi Goldberg and a very young, what's his name? Sorry. You don't know it until the very end when you see him, but you hear his voice throughout the movie. It's a very young Jonathan Pryce. And it's essentially the two of them. You got Carol Kane in there too. But she ends up as she's chatting online back in the 80s on like a message board with this guy named Jack. And she ends up getting herself into trouble with very bad people, and Jack sort of is helping her through it, but just through chatting and typing and stuff like that. And it turns out he may or may not be involved with like the CIA or some spy agency and stuff. But I think it's really good for an 80s movie, and Whoopi Goldberg did a great job. Jumpin' Jack Flash, named after the Rolling Stones song Jumpin' Jack Flash. Number 6, we have a film from 1994. I saw this one in the theater, called Terminal Velocity. This one stars Charlie Sheen, Nastasia Kinski, James Gandolfini, Christopher McDonald. And it's essentially Charlie Sheen runs a skydiving camp out in the desert. And Nastasia Kinski shows up one time, wants lessons, and then goes for a solo skydive, and ends up, her chute doesn't open and she hits the ground and she's dead. Well, now he's all depressed because he trained her, she's beautiful, he liked her a lot, and then she's dead. And then he starts to, details start to emerge that maybe she's not dead, and maybe she had some shady past. And so he starts investigating and finds out that he shouldn't be investigating all this because he's turning up all these dangerous things. Dangerous people are looking for her, Russians and stuff like that. And so he is basically it's a very much a fish out of water film. He's in way over his head. I think it's a lot of fun. Terminal Velocity. Excuse me. Number 5. We have a film from 2008. It was a direct-to-video film. You may have seen the Get Smart remake with... Oh. It was a Get... I don't know why I blanked on it. It came out the same year. Get Smart remake that had Steve Carell, Anne Hathaway, Dwayne Johnson, Alan Arkin, Terrence Stamp, Terry Crews, David Koechner, James Caan, a whole bunch of people in the movie. They put out a direct-to-video, I think soon after it came out on video, called Get Smart. Get Smart's Bruce and Lloyd Out of Control. And it focuses on Bruce and Lloyd, played by Masi Oka and Nate Torrance, sort of like two of the side CIA guys who created that Jaime side robot. And it's sort of like their side adventures that are going on while the rest of the Get Smart movie is going on. And Anne Hathaway actually cameos in one scene in the film where she's talking to them on the phone. Steve Carell doesn't, but Anne Hathaway does. So if you wanted a sequel or wanted to see more of Get Smart, this would be really the only opportunity you have. Get Smart's Bruce and Lloyd Out of Control. Number 4, we have a film from 1985 called Remo Williams, The Adventure Begins. Now, I would think most people have heard about this, but maybe not. But this was an excellent movie from the 80s where a guy gets a cop who gets mortally wounded. He's almost dead, gets his face reconstructed, and then gets recruited into this secret organization, not unlike the CIA, but it's run by a small group of people, and basically becomes a super spy. It starred Fred Ward. You've also got Joel Grey, Wilford Brimley, Kate Mulgrew in it. And Fred Ward is Remo Williams. And it's based on a series of novels, I believe called Remo the Destroyer. Well, they only made the one film. But it is a great 80s action film where just a regular Joe gets turned into a super spy. Seek it out. I didn't have too much trouble finding. We had it taped off TV, but I didn't have too much trouble finding the DVD when I looked for it. Remo Williams, The Adventure Begins and Ends, because it didn't make any more movies. All right, number 3. We have a film from 2002 called Ballistic X Vs Seven. I know a lot of people hate this film. I'm not one of them. This is a film by Witch Keosayananda, and stars primarily Antonio Banderas and Lucy Liu, but you've also got Greg Henry. Let me see. Greg Henry and Ray Park, Tulisa Soto, Miguel Sandoval, Terry Chen. It's got a great cast in there, and it's sort of one agent gets sent after another rogue agent. That's Antonio Banderas going after Lucy Liu, and not told the real reasons why. And there is a twist in there that I won't mention if you ever happen to watch the movie. But it has some great action and fight scenes, and I like the story, and I really don't understand the hate that this movie gets. I don't. I thought it was great, and I recommend it. Ballistic X Vs Sever. Apparently they made a video game, but I never saw that anywhere. Number 2, we have a film from 2020 called The Rhythm Section, filmed by Reed Moreno, starring primarily Blake Lively, Jude Law, Sterling K. Brown. And it's essentially a girl's family dies in a plane crash, and this is Blake Lively, and she finds out that they were murdered. The plane crash was not an accident, and she wants revenge on the terrorists. So she gets involved with Jude Law, who's former, I believe former CIA, former MI6, sorry, disgraced MI6, and he trains her to be this super killer, so she can go after the terrorists responsible. And that's the plot of that one in a nutshell. I thought it was well done. Jude Law did a great job. Blake Lively did a great job. I'd never seen her as an action hero kind of thing. And Sterling K. Brown does a great job in the movie. Highly recommend this one. The Rhythm Section. All right, number 1. Again, probably the most well-known on this list, but maybe you don't know about it if you don't follow Steven Soderbergh films. He made his own spy film in 2011 called Haywire, and this one starred Gina Carano, the former MMA star, and it's awesome. You've got Gina Carano, you have Channing Tatum, Antonio Banderas, Michael Douglas, Bill Paxton, Ewan McGregor, Michael Fassbender. Oh my God, who's not in this movie? And she's a super spy, and she makes a mistake. And she gets targeted by her bosses. So she has to go on the run. But it also flashes back to a job that she was on with Channing Tatum. And the mistake she made may or may not have something to do with that job. But it goes back and forth between her taking this guy as hostage and being on the run from her former employers, and the job that she did that got botched that she had to escape from. And it's very well done. It looks exactly like several of Steven Soderbergh movies from that era, and by that I mean just the way he shot it. It has the same look, so you know it's Steven Soderbergh film from that era. But this is a super well written movie, great action scenes, And oh my god, the action, the fight scene between Gina Carano and Michael Fassbender in the hotel room is worth the price of admission right there. But yeah, it's awesome. Especially Gina Carano's escape from the hotel where the job goes bad. It's so good. Haywire. All right, so that is the end of that list. I hope you enjoyed that one. And look forward to showing you the next one. All right, toodles.